you don't mind just telling us your name.
Jessica? Jessica Nunn. I don't know. Do you need the whole name?
No,
Okay, Jessica.
That's good. Could you tell us what your dreams were as a kid?
As a kid, I think, I grew up in East Berlin, so behind the wall. Can you hear?
That's good.
So behind the wall. And, we weren't allowed to travel anywhere or anything, and everything was just really gray and like depressing, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
We were also very controlled, and you didn't really have freedom. So I think freedom kind of was like what I wanted, what I wished for, because my parents always talked about getting under the wall or get away somehow, which was very life-threatening, of course, to do that, right? But we had friends who actually did that, and so they were really inspired, but thank God we didn't do it, because we probably would have not made it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, being free, like that was always like, there was a lot of talk about living in East Berlin, like the effects, like our family talked a lot about it, like it was not fun, so.
Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and your general relationship with your parents?
Yeah, so my parents had me really young. My mom was like 18 and my dad was 21, I think, 22. So yeah, not the best parents. So we didn't have the best, like I have a sister too, so we didn't have the best parents. They're like always fighting and things like that. And we were always poor, and then of course, like in East Germany, you didn't own anything anyways, like nobody owned anything, so there wasn't luxury or anything, right? So you just had like, get up, go to school, and go to sleep kind of life. So I mean, I do have good connections to my parents now. They're still alive, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they just didn't know how to be parents, because they were too young and stuff. So I never, you know what I mean, like you can take all of that and keep it like on your shoulders and like hate them or feel angry about it, but I don't know, ever since I was a teenager, I was like, I understand, I understand like the way they grew up and the opportunity they have, and who knows what kind of person I would have become if I were in their shoes, right? So I always forgiven them. That's what I'm forgiving them, for the things that weren't so great. So
What's the biggest thing you learned from them?
that you should find the person that you really love, because they didn't love each other. Yeah. So
How'd you know that they didn't love each other?
because I mean they kind of taught us eventually. Yeah, so my mom got pregnant with me on purpose to snatch him, you know what I mean? So he doesn't get away. And I think they did think that they loved each other, but they just didn't. Like now that I'm an adult and I see how love works and like loving relationships work, right? I didn't know what that was growing up, because there was just always fighting. But now I learned it throughout my life what a loving relationship is. So, and yeah, they did not. They just stayed together for the kids, how so many people do, unfortunately, which I would not recommend.
Can you tell us about your first love and how that felt?
My first love was like the real true love was not till I was like already in my 20s. And that felt just amazing, of course, I actually had an out-of-body experience. So that's how I kind of knew, like, oh my God, this is something very special. And what was also amazing is growing up in East Berlin is you don't know anything about God really, or things of religion and stuff. That's really not popular. So, they don't want you to have your own beliefs or whatever, right? They want to control you. And so my family always said there's nothing after we die, we don't have a soul, those type of things were never talked about. So I literally thought when we are gone, it's all blackness, there's nothing, it's over forever, So with the outer body experience, I all of a sudden, oh my God, there's something here, right? I'm not just this physical form, there's more to it. And so that I think was the most special thing about falling in love with this person, was like having, this experience, and then that experience connected me to God, to source. I call it source. But
Can you describe that experience for us a little bit?
Yeah, so we had a moment where we kissed, and then I just realized everything was black, and then I saw stars, but they weren't like I was close to them. They were still far in the distance, but I knew I left my body and that I was in space. And then all of a sudden I was just back in my body. It was very strange.
How did it feel?
Amazing, like, and shocking. Like for many, many years, because this is so long ago, I was, before really Google was around and stuff, I was like, what was this? You know, what is this? You know, I couldn't meet anybody. I never knew anyone who had the same experience. I was like, am I just crazy? You know, what is going on? But now, with you know, the internet and all these people that are connected now, right? I've met other people who also had this experience. So I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one. I'm not crazy.
Could you tell us about your first loss or heartbreak and how that felt?
Oh gosh, yeah. That was in 1996. I was 15. My best friend, he jumped off of a building, the 10th floor, and killed himself. And like I said, at the time, right, I believed there's nothing. And that was the biggest crazy pain for me. And I actually was thinking about killing myself all the time too, right? Because we were like brother and sister. We were like really, really close. And just by believing that he's gone forever and I will never see him again, I will never interact with him again, I just couldn't handle that feeling. And that went on now until I recently really connected to Source about 1.5 years ago. And I would like, felt like as if it just happened, even after 23 years, you know, just even more than that now. But it just always, the pain was always the same. It never went away. It was always as if it just had happened yesterday. And I couldn't understand it rationally in my head either, right? Everyone is always saying time heals all wounds, you know, and like it will get better with time, but it just never got better for me. I just didn't understand, you know, it was so painful. And now that I connect, I understand that I will see him again, you know, we'll be like, our souls will somehow interact at some point in time again. Now I'm at peace with it, you know, so I'm like, okay, you know, I cannot change the situation, and yeah, so I know he's still around, you know, so yeah.
Who would you say first taught you love and how?
Yeah, I think again that person, like, because before I was in a narcissistic relationship, right? 2 times actually. And there I thought that it was love because my mom is actually a narcissist. And with them fighting like this all the time, that was normal to me, right? Like I didn't really realize, hey, this is not how you have a relationship. This is not how it should go. And yeah, and then by meeting that person, because there's unconditional love there. I don't even know how to put it into words, but you just love that person unconditionally. And yeah, and knowing that I have the capabilities to love someone unconditionally, that really is kind of what taught me what real love is. Yeah. And then in comparison to being in a loveless relationship to being with somebody that actually loves you, you just feel it, you know, you just feel the difference. Yeah.
What's your definition of love?
I think true love is unconditional. I think you don't demand anything. You are perfectly okay with yourself, and the other person is perfectly okay with themselves. And then you just come together and you just the icing on the cake, you know? You just, and that doesn't mean that there's not ever going to be arguments or anything, right? But it's just that you don't demand anything from your person, they don't demand anything from you. Where you both are complete, you know? You're complete by yourself, but now you're really complete because now you've come together.
What's a good day look like for you?
Sleeping in. Love to sleep in. I have dogs and I love to spend time with them, and also I love to like spend time with my daughter. If I don't have to work, that would be nice. And yeah, just kind of lazy, but then also the greatest thing would be if I would be traveling, like I would already be traveled somewhere, and then I could just like go into a cafe, have a coffee, you know, people watch, and just chill, and then go see some sights and take photos. I love taking pictures, especially when I travel. Yeah, just little slice of heaven.
What about a bad day, and how do you get through those bad days?
Crying, a lot of crying. When I first moved here, that was in 2010. I think I cried every day for 3 years. even while I was driving and stuff, because I was a single mom getting divorced and everything. It was very, very hard. And I was alone, no family, no friends. But the way I got through it was, of course, I had my daughter. That gives you something to hold on to. But this might sound really bad, but what really honestly got me through was reminding myself of how horrible other people's lives are, and to really put into perspective how good my life was. You know, I wasn't homeless. I had a home. Like, I wasn't happy, or like things were rough. I didn't have money. I didn't, but I had the necessities. We had food, even though I had to check every cent to buy the food, and we sometimes only had ramen, but we still had it better off than so many other people in the world. And that always pushed me through. It was always like, okay, you're really lucky, actually, you're really lucky. It could be so much worse.
What's been a humbling experience for you?
That's probably really right now, just recently, how I connected to Source. That was just the most insane thing, and I have been the happiest person ever since. I my life from kind of like, oh, and now all of a sudden I feel like I'm just glowing. I just want to spread love and just share love and just be love, and that was really my most, especially recently, amazing experience.
How was that? Do you want to talk about that?
I'm kind of like a psychic and a medium, and a messenger for Source now too. And I started with tarot cards, and I was doing them for myself every day, and then I had like a message come through, basically, that I should do them for the collective, the things that we should watch out for every day. And it was mostly messages around like, please take care of the planet, like, don't treat the planet like you do, like do everything with respect and love, give thanks to everything that you do, right? And that was, and then it entered me, whatever energy it was, and that's how I kind of got connected. I know it sounds really wild, but and ever since then I get all these messages, and I'm a messenger, and I can just like channel all these messages that the collective needs to know, and they're very beautiful. It's all about saving the planet, and there's no hate, no nothing. There's no hate, there's no hell, no nothing like that. It's just unconditional love, and it's so beautiful when you know that this is what it really is. It's all just unconditional love. Why we're here is to experience unconditional love. That's actually what I just channeled the other day, is that when we're just spirit source, we know love. When we come to earth, we experience love. You can only experience it here in a 3D body. You cannot do it as just a spirit. And
What's the What's the hardest thing you've been through?
The divorce was really bad, but I think the hardest one was, I'm an ex-army wife, and when they deployed, I became the family readiness group leader for the families in Germany, because we were in Germany at the time, and these poor women, and sometimes even men, didn't speak the language. They didn't have driver's license, but they had like 3-4 kids, and like it was horrible. And so like I just felt like somebody needs to help with that. And the lady that was doing the effort, she did weird things, and so she had to be kicked out. And then I did the training and everything. I took over. But it was supposed to be a 12-month deployment, turned into a 15-month. And so it was just, and we had like horrible, horrible experiences throughout the entire thing. It was just, I don't want to say all that, but so it was really, really hard. So just going through that, and then having a little kid, when is my daddy coming home? When's my daddy coming home? And then, as the readiness group leader, you go to these meetings, you get the emails, you have to spread the messages, you have to go to the memorial services, and it was just, I was basically almost 1.5 years just death. I felt surrounded by death, and that was the hardest in my life, probably, getting through that. And then you have to do it alone, right? Because your husband is down there, you are here, and the communication was really nothing back then, and so that was really, really hard.
How'd you cope with that while you were doing it?
I ended up in the hospital a few times with like heart palpitations, crazy racing heart and stuff, because I couldn't really handle it. at a memorial service, I broke down. I literally fell to the floor because I remember the death thing. Now I have a different understanding of it, but back then I didn't. So everything, it was just too much for me. Anytime a soldier died, it was really, really hard. And yeah, I think just having that end date in mind, like this is not a situation that will last forever. You can get through this, like you just one day at a time, one day at a time. Yeah.
So for this next question, if you can go in your mind and think, this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time in your life that you relate to the word war?
Okay, this is coming to me right now just spontaneously. People being confused who we are, because we are really source, we are unconditional love, but we forgot why we're in this body. So we're confused, so we fight each other instead of understanding it's just my brother, it's just my sister, we're all one. We are source, we're unconditional love. So I would say confused because we forgot who we truly are. We are God, we're source. And that makes us do silly things when we forget about that.
So the next question, same type of question. If you can go in your mind and think, this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time in your life that you relate to the word peace?
Yeah, that person that I spoke of, with feeling that unconditional love for that person, and then being with them, that's total peace. Because everything around you is gone, nothing exists anymore. It's just that connection. And so there's no war, there's not even other people really, you're just in that moment, you're just this oneness, this unconditional love that floods you. And that's total peace. Like there's nothing outside of it. It's just love. Yeah.
What's one of the happiest moments in your life?
Yeah, meeting that person and then giving birth to my daughter. Yeah, those are almost the same. Yeah.
What inspires you?
Right now, it's really source. I really want to bring unconditional love to the world. Like I want people to understand that source, like that we are having such a magical experience being here, because like you mentioned earlier, right, your story, and I had suicidal thoughts too before, but it's because we forget, right, how magical it is to be a human, how magical it is to be alive, how magical it is to be a spiritual being in a physical body. Biting in a peach and having the water run down your chin, or like kissing the person you love, or just a hug, or a smell of grass, cut grass. That is not, you cannot have that as a spiritual being. You just can't. This is, Source always calls this the love planet. It's like, this is like the most magical place we can be. It's where we come to play, where we come to experience, where we come to feel, Because there we know everything. Here we forget, and now we get to explore, and we get to really enjoy everything. And it's almost like a rebirth every time,
What keeps you up at night?
All metaphysical stuff, anything, all these type of things, questions and stuff. It's just, I always been thinking about like ancient history, all of the things, aliens and who is God, what is life, all that kind of stuff. So my brain usually doesn't really shut down. It's always just asking 10,000 questions at a time. And
what keeps you going every day?
Just now that I realize how magical it is to be alive, that's what's getting me going now. It's like when I hear the birds, and it sounds really cheesy, but it's like just the little stuff like that. Now I'm seeing the world with different eyes now. I'm seeing everything as if it's magical. Everything's magical. Every experience, good and bad, right? It's all here for us to learn, to grow, to connect. I think we're really supposed to connect and really spread and share love. And it's all just so beautiful now. I don't even know.
We're going towards the last couple questions. Is there anything you'd like to talk about or add?
So twin flame connections. Have you heard of twin flames?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I really think. I realize now what this connection is with this person. You know, that he is the other half of me. And so from my understanding, what I've been gaining is the reason why they exist, they come here, is because they share this unconditional love, right? And they're supposed to be this inspiration for love. You know, they're supposed to show the world what unconditional love is. Once we realize that, then we understand we are God and that we are ourselves unconditional love. Everyone is. Everyone. I mean, everyone. Even the people we think they are bad, but they're just, we are just playing characters here. You know, we're just playing roles when we come here. But outside of that, once we lose this body and this lifetime, we're just back one in the pool of unconditional love connected with source, you know? So we are all really just unconditional love. I guess that's what I would want to talk about, unconditional love. Yeah. Yeah.
You want to talk more about that in the, so when we die,
Mm-hmm.
you say that we go back to source.
Yeah.
Is that to say that when we're here we can't stay connected to source, or how does that work?
Yeah, when you just said that question, I was like, no, actually we're always connected to source.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're always connected to source, but we forget that we are, right? And yeah, by starting to open up and bringing source back in, you start being filled with all this love, you know, that you just don't really feel before that for some reason, you know, like you feel so empty. And then once you connect, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, you're glowing, you're like floating almost, you know, on a cloud. Like you just, yeah, because you get this love transferred into you. And yeah, Source calls it love vessels. We are love vessels. So when we connect to Source, it gets to fill us with all this love, you know?
Imagine you're in the hospital today
Mm-hmm.
with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
I did hurt my twin flame once, and I made a huge mistake, and that's what I really, really regret. And I wish I didn't do that.
So obviously you're alive and well, you're here.
Yeah,
Do you
thank
feel
God.
that you can be at peace or make amends with that regret you just stated?
I asked for forgiveness many times, but I don't know if I received it. But I did make peace with myself because I realized I didn't do it because I wanted to. I was kind of put into the situation to do that, and therefore I forgave myself. It took forever, over 20 years. No, actually not that long, because it was later on that we saw each other again. Anyways, it's a long story. But yeah, so I had now forgiven myself because I realized that I didn't do it because I wanted to hurt him. I did it in the situation that I was put into, and I didn't have any way out of it, and I had to kind of pick another route. And yeah, and so once I realized that, because I was beating myself up over and over again for doing that for many, many years. And then once I realized that, it's like, now it's on him to forgive me. That's not on me anymore. And I can make peace with the situation. You know, I can say, okay, if he doesn't, that's okay too. I forgive myself.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
World peace. For people to realize who we really are, that we are all source, we're unconditional love, and we have that inside of us, and that we stop fighting each other and stop hating each other, and really, really start healing the planet, because we're on a really bad spiraling thing right now, I think, you know, and we need to stop that, and we need to start really just taking what we need, but then also giving it back. And when you take, you have to give gratitude for taking it, right? So everything has to be give and take, and give gratitude, and do everything with love. And that would be my dream, if that message could spread wide and far, and people, yeah.
I have a question for you. So Source brings us here to experience love in a physical plane.
Yeah.
So why do we have, is part of experiencing the hurt and the pain and as you see the the wars in the world.
Mm-hmm.
What does that play into us experiencing love?
So I think for the people going through those moments, like as I did as an army wife, I did not like the war, but what you do get is that feeling, that love feeling for that person that is gone, right? Like you realize how important that person is for you and how much you want them home and how important they are to your child, and that the child loves that person. And and the other opposite side is having the same thing going through that, right? So it's their daddy going to a war, and it's their husband or their wife, right? And there's so much love in that, not in that fighting part, but in everything that is surrounding the fight. Because there's all this sadness and pain, not because of love, right? Because they miss them, because they love them so much, they're scared of them, and they, please come home, please come home, please come home, right? So, and the love that those people then also share with each other and in their communities is tremendous, right? Like this togetherness that comes from it. People, in all the horrible things that are happening ever in the world, like take 9/11, how do people come together and express love and are there for each other? And, you know, just strangers, come here, I'll give you a hug. I know you've just seen horrific things. So these things make us, I have chills, so these things make us, I think, really realize what's really important. And what is really important is love.
You're the co-author of your life story. What's your storybook ending?
So I'm hopeful to have a life partner sometime, and that we can just like live kind of off of the land, you know, like, because that's how Source wants us to live, like really like just take what we need and giving back and doing everything with love too. Even eating food we're supposed to do with love, and treating the animals, even if we do eat them, but we need to raise them while we love them and cuddle them, and if, you know, like give them all the love we can, and then if we eat them, that love will come back towards us, you know, because what we give we get, right? And so that is like my kind of dream, to live in that kind of little heaven on earth paradise. And then just, you know, having my friends visiting friends, my daughter, of course, happy, healthy, around, and yeah, that would be just amazing. Just like little happy community, my friends, family, everybody is little like heaven on earth. That's my goal, is heaven on earth, and that is it for me. You know, if you can live with the land and the animals and with the people all in harmony together, that is kind of, that would be my dream endings.